The Rule of Three, Chapter 6. I opened up one eye and then the other. I was back on the living room couch where I'd crashed after Herb had sent me home for the night. Sunlight streamed through the windows. There were soft voices and strong smells coming from the kitchen. The voices were too quiet to make out, but the smells were unmistakable. Coffee and bacon. Did that mean that we had electricity again? I looked over to the DVD player. No little red light glowing meant there was still no power from the wall sockets. I got up and shuffled toward the kitchen. Before I'd rounded the corner to see, I could make out Rachel and Danny's voices. And Mom's. "You're home," I said from the doorway. It wasn't just Mom and the twins, but Herb and that officer, Brett, all sitting at the kitchen table. "Good morning. Glad to see you're not sleeping away the whole day," my mom said. I looked at my watch. It wasn't 8 yet. It's not that late. Besides, I was up most of the night. "And your mother was up all of the night," she said. "That makes 2 of us," Herb said. "3," Brett added. "Come and sit down. Have some coffee and breakfast," my mother said. I noticed the extension cord leading in through the sliding glass door, snaking across the floor and up onto the counter, where it was connected to a toaster, the coffee maker, and an electric skillet. Obviously, this was the line coming from Herb's generator. I poured myself a nice hot cup of coffee and then put a few strips of bacon and a couple of pieces of toast onto a plate. "How are things?" I asked. "Considering all the potential for problems, things are going well, especially since I was short so many officers." "Why so many?" I asked. "Some have a long drive to work, so there's no way they could report for duty. With others, I suspect that they were worried about their own families and stayed home." "I can understand that," Herb said. "So can I," my mother agreed. "I'm fortunate not only to live close, but to have Adam to look after the kids." "We don't need babysitting," Danny said. "Yes, we do," said Rachel. They were on the opposite sides of a lot of issues. Herb smiled. "I'm just saying I understand these officers wanting to protect their families." "I couldn't go home even if I wanted to," Brett said. "My parents are out west, and my house is well over an hour's drive." "You're welcome to stay here as long as necessary," my mother said. "I really appreciate that, Captain. I know a couple of the guys are sleeping at the station." "And I'm grateful for that," my mother said. "We can't leave it unmanned." "Brett did a fine job last night. It was helpful to have an officer standing post," Herb said. "There are actually 3 others from the precinct who live right here in the neighborhood," my mother said, "and they've all reported in for duty." "What if they didn't?" Herb asked. "I'm sure they'll come. All 3 are veterans and, I mean, what if you assigned them to patrol in this area instead? Then I'd be down 3 more officers that I can't afford to lose." "Not lose, reassign," Herb said. "With those officers, along with Brett, this whole area would be completely under control." "And other areas would be less under control." "I can't do that," my mother said. "I'd be accused of acting in the interests of my family and not of the whole community." "Isn't this neighborhood a big sector of your precinct?" Herb said. 4 patrols could protect hundreds of houses, a couple thousand people, the stores and their supplies, the fuel at the gas station. 4 officers on foot couldn't patrol all of that, Brett said. "But 4 patrols that were mobile could," Herb said. "What sort of transportation do you have in mind?" my mother asked. "There are bicycles, of course." and older vehicles as well as mini bikes and dirt bikes that are all still working. You could even double the coverage by allowing each officer to be partnered with a civilian, sort of like Neighborhood Watch, but on wheels. That would certainly make it more doable, my mother said, although obviously none of those civilians involved in patrols could be armed. I wondered how she'd feel about me carrying a baseball bat or Herb's packing heat. Only those legally registered to carry a firearm should be doing so, Herb agreed. Yes, people like yourself who are licensed, my mother added. So she already knew about his gun. Actually, I was thinking of borrowing your car today, Adam, my mother said. Sure thing, I said, even though the idea of somebody else, even her, using my car made me uneasy because it had always stalled out when other people tried to drive it. But I thought better of it. Your car isn't reliable, and you seem to be the only one who can make it go. I'll figure out another option. I'll scout around the neighborhood if you'd like, Herb said. Take an inventory of working vehicles. That would be appreciated. We could try taking an inventory here, and if it worked, I might be able to apply the same thing to other parts of the precinct. Mom was being completely relaxed and straightforward with Herb. I got the feeling that she really did appreciate his help around the neighborhood, while she considered her whole precinct. And since I'm looking, I could also be trying to find some people who could establish nighttime checkpoints at key locations in the neighborhood, Herb said. It would give your officers reassurance to know that their families are safe while they're out on patrol. Of course, I'd only do that with your permission. My mother nodded. I understand the reasoning for everything you're suggesting, Herb, but at this point, I don't think it's necessary. Okay, he said. But if you change your mind, I can put things into operation quickly. That's good to know, my mother said. Thank you for thinking this through. I was grateful she wasn't giving in to paranoid thought or overreaction. After all, the power hadn't been out for even 24 hours. It would be all right soon enough. My mother got up from the table. I'm pretty sure that I won't be back until tomorrow morning at the earliest. Adam, I know you'll look after your brother and sister while I'm gone. Do you want me to drive you to the station? I asked. That would be wonderful. It is a long walk. If you don't mind, I'd like to go along with you, Herb said, just to keep you company. I need to get some things from the station, so I should go too, Brett said. There's enough room for the four of us, I said. It would be okay to leave Danny and Rachel for a while, right? For a while is no problem, my mother agreed. No problem, Danny said. A little while, Rachel added. I turned the key and my car started right up. Strange, but it seemed to be working better than it usually did. It was now pretty loaded down with the extra weight of 3 passengers and the working mini bike and 2 trail bikes strapped into the trunk. My mother was going to have officers use them for patrol, and then she'd ride the mini bike home at the end of her shift. Slowly, I backed up, easing down the driveway so I wouldn't bottom out. I think your grandfather would be proud of how this old car of his is doing, my mother said with a laugh. I think we should all be proud of it, Herb said. Sometimes things that have been retired can still do the job. I get the feeling you aren't just talking about the car, my mom said. You're right about that, Herb said, and we all chuckled. I was surprised how many people were already on the street this early. Folks were outside talking in pairs or small groups. Normally, the only people I'd ever seen at this hour were walking their dogs. Without exception, people stopped talking and watched as we passed by. This must be what it's like to drive a Ferrari or a Lamborghini, I said. Especially since none of those cars would be working now, Brett said. Well, really old Ferraris would be working, I noted, heading west up Folkway toward Parkway. I rolled through the stop sign at the top of the hill and looked over at the mini mall. It didn't look normal at all. The parking lot was full of abandoned cars, and there were hundreds and hundreds of people milling about the stores. Are those stores open yet? I asked. I'm not sure most of them are going to open at all, Herb said. Pull in, my mother ordered. I cranked the wheel and we motored into the parking lot. Crowds this big make me nervous, Mom said. We'll just stop and there was a tremendous crash and the front window of the supermarket shattered into a million pieces. A roar went up from the crowd as it surged forward. Let us out, my mother ordered, and I slammed on the brakes. My mother and Brett jumped out. The two of them rushed toward the mob, which was pushing and shoving its way through the opening where the window had been. I watched Mom and Brett disappear into the store. I could almost feel the chaos from here. Things were out of control. Drive, Herb ordered. I'm not leaving. You're not going anywhere. You just have to park and lock your car. Hide it among the other vehicles, and then we can help. How can we go? I pressed down on the accelerator, whipped around the corner, and found an empty spot, pulled in, and turned off the engine. Roll up the windows and lock it, Herb said, his voice calm again. Quickly, the windows went up, and we climbed out, locking the car behind us. There was another tremendous crash, and I looked up to see a second window had been broken, pieces of glass raining down, scattering the crowd before they rushed into the second opening. Stay right with me, Adam. Right behind me, Herb said. His hand was on his pistol, still in its holster. As we rushed forward, there were already people moving away, carrying cases of water and soda, arms full of cereal and boxes of cookies and bags of chips. There was a strange look on their faces, eyes wide open and glazed, like they were excited and scared and happy all at once. Where was my mother? Where was Brett? There was a loud noise. Get down, Herb yelled. He ducked, and I did the same, almost hiding behind him. Is that gunfire? A second shot rang out, and then a third. There was no mistaking that sound now. At once, the crowd reacted. Some froze in place, and others started running. Herb stood straight while I still cowered, trying to hide behind him. I caught sight of Brett stepping out of the store through one of the shattered windows. My mother appeared in the second. There was blood flowing down her face from a cut on her scalp. Everybody stop! My mother yelled. She aimed her gun in the air and fired another shot, and the entire crowd froze. Brett was holding his revolver in one hand. In the other, he had his baton. Herb had also unholstered his weapon. It was now in his hand by his side, his other hand cradling it, partially hiding it from view. Those inside the store need to leave, my mother yelled out. If you try to leave with stolen merchandise, you will be arrested and charged with looting and rioting. Get out and go home now. A man came out past her, and then another, and then a woman holding a small child by the hand. This woman had brought her kid along as she went into the store to loot. People were leaving the store, but they weren't leaving the lot. If anything, there were more people coming, slowly walking toward the front of the store. This isn't over, Herb said to me quietly. Come. We threaded our way through the crowd, and I noticed that his hand was now in his pants pocket, his pistol out of sight. We just want food and water, a man called out. and the crowd reacted with a roar of agreement. "This isn't the way to get it," my mother replied. Blood was dripping down the side of her face. "Then what is the way?" somebody else yelled. The crowd was now becoming louder, pressing closer again. "We have a right to food and water," another person in the crowd yelled, and again the crowd reacted. They were going from crowd to mob again, right before my eyes. My mother wiped her face with her hand. Herb stepped forward until he was standing beside my mother. He whispered in her ear a moment, and she nodded. Then he spoke to the crowd. "Folks, you do deserve food and water, and I know how you can get it." "Let's hear it," a voice called. I wanted to hear it too, but I also wanted to know about my mother. I sidled past Herb until I stood right behind her. "Are you okay?" I whispered. "Fine, just a little cut, nothing, piece of glass. You know how head cuts can bleed." She turned to the crowd. "Listen to my friend here. His name is Herb. You'll all be able to purchase some water and food from this store," Herb continued. "What if we don't have cash?" somebody called out. "We can't get any from the banks and credit cards aren't working." A credit system, an honor system, will be arranged where some merchandise will be given out on the promise that you'll pay once power is restored, Herb announced. "He's not authorized to make that offer," a man exclaimed as he stepped out of the store. "I'm the manager, and he has no right to—" "Shut up and listen," my mother snapped. She turned to Herb. "Go on." "We need you all to stay calm and orderly," Herb said. "I know you're good people and want to do the right thing. Here's how it will work. There will be a line, and it will start over there, right by the sign on the street." As one, the crowd turned and looked in the other direction. The entire mob had become a group of obedient children. Herb was controlling the group like a magician. "I want you all to know that you have my word that things will be distributed fairly so that everybody who is present now in this parking lot will receive supplies." I looked at my mother. Her quizzical expression mirrored my thoughts. How is he going to do that? But he sounded so calm, so matter of fact that I believed him, and judging from the reaction, so did the crowd. "Okay, slowly now. Women with children and older people move forward, and then in just a minute, I want the rest of you to make an orderly line over there by the sign. And remember, we're all civilized people, and the best way to care for your family is to protect other people's rights to care for their families." The crowd started reorganizing itself. A line was forming while old-timers and some women with kids moved toward us. "He has no right to," the manager started saying again, but my mother cut him off. "Inside," she ordered. He hesitated and then did what she said, the broken glass on the floor sounding under his feet. "Herb, can you come in too and explain how this is going to work?" my mother asked. "It's not complicated," Herb said. She turned to Brett. "Stay out here. Watch." Brett stood on the sidewalk, and I followed Herb and my mother into the store. Along with the broken glass on the floor, there were bags and boxes and cans and displays that had been knocked over. "Listen, I know you're just trying to help, but you had no right to say those things," the manager said. He sounded anxious and scared. "I'm Captain Daly, and I have the right in civil emergencies to do many things," my mother said, "and he is acting as my deputy." Herb held out his hand to the man. I'm Herb. And who are you? Ernie Williams. Ernie, I know how difficult this all is. I can only imagine how you felt when those people crashed through your window and started rampaging. It was terrifying. I was afraid that somebody would have killed me if I tried to stop them. Mobs can get out of control like a forest fire. You had every right to be terrified, Ernie. If you tried to stop them, they could have hurt you. I noticed how he let the hurt part sink in. Please don't get me wrong. I'm grateful that you stopped it, but that's going to happen. But what's going to happen when they realize that we can't do what you said? Ernie asked. Oh, but we are going to do it, Herb said. I can't just give away food without people paying. It isn't my store. I'm just the manager. Ernie, Herb said as he placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder, nobody is asking you to give things away. You're going to get cash where you can and enough information from people who don't have cash so that you can get them to pay later. Isn't that what a credit card does? I guess it is sort of like an IOU. You're also only going to allow them to purchase selected items. Look around the store. With the electricity out, there is a lot of food that's going to go bad today. It's a nightmare. What a waste of inventory, Ernie said. And you're not going to allow that to happen. You're going to turn these things that were going to be thrown out into profit for your company. You will make your company money. And when this is over, the customers will remember you as the guy who helped keep their families fed. You're going to be a hero to everybody. They'll be loyal to your store from now on. He put his arm around Ernie and walked him over to the opening so that he could see the line forming. Wouldn't you rather be their hero than their victim? But how do we do it? Ernie asked. How many people do you have in the store to help you? Usually more than a dozen. Today, only 2 came in. Counting myself, that makes 3. And if you add in me and young Adam here, you have 5. And I recognized a few other people out in that line who can help. They can stay when I send everybody else home, Herb said. You're going to send them home? My mother asked. I'm not sure that's such a good idea. They won't be going empty-handed. Ernie, I want you to go to the back and get that thing from the deli that gives people a number to be served. Then you and I are going to go through that line out there and give each person a number. We're going to ask them to come back at a specific time. It'd be better to deal with people a few at a time. And by giving out numbers, we get to know how many people are out there and how we have to divvy up the supplies. And we're only giving them some things, right? Ernie asked. Yes, you're going to allow them to purchase all of the things that are going to go bad if they're not eaten. Meats aren't completely frozen. Dairy products like milk and yogurt and butter and ice cream, frozen vegetables that are thawing out. What about fruits and vegetables that will go bad? Ernie added. Can I sell those as well? Now you're thinking. Let's also sell them a small quantity of bottled water if you run out of other liquids. There should be no sale of non-perishable. Anything that's canned, boxed, dried, or otherwise packaged so that it can survive without refrigeration. Can you do all of that, Herb asked? I can do it. Good. Then you get your people and we'll make it all happen, Herb said. Ernie rushed off. Now there was orderly action inside the store and out in front. Brett was organizing the first group of shoppers into a line. That was amazing, my mother said to Herb. The way you handled everything, everybody. Without you taking charge in the first place, I couldn't have done what I did. It was like with those guys trying to steal my car yesterday, I said. My mother turned to me. She looked shocked. I just made a mistake. It was nothing, I said. It was more like a misunderstanding. It was more than that, but your son and I handled it, Herb said. And together, we can handle the situation here. We can keep this all under control for now. But once night hits, it's going to get worse. We really could use those officers, patrols, and checkpoints. She didn't answer right away, but after a few moments it was clear she'd changed her mind about his earlier request. I'll have the 4 officers report here by 6 p.m. I'll leave it with you to connect them with their civilian partners and then figure out their patrol routes. She paused and smiled. You already have the routes figured out, don't you? He returned the smile. It's not just Boy Scouts who need to be prepared. You know, Herb, those people out there, I know a lot of them. They're my neighbors, people whose kids play soccer and baseball with my kids. I never would have guessed it could have turned so badly, so bad, so quickly. Bad can happen in the blink of an eye. If I hadn't seen it, I wouldn't have believed it. I'm grateful for your help here today. Perhaps we can talk later about how I might utilize your skills more. I'm at your disposal. Anything you need, I'm under your command, Herb said. Now, we better get you to the station. How's the cut? She put her hand up to touch it. The blood had stopped flowing, but was still dried on her face and matting her hair on one side. I'd forgotten about it. It stopped bleeding. You should clean up. Your officers shouldn't see you that way, Herb said. I'll work with Ernie to organize and then help with the food distribution. Does that sound like a plan? I guess it's the best plan we have, my mother said.